Hi everyone, Elliot Jacobson here, and today I want to talk about why blackjack card counting sucks. And there are many reasons it sucks, and in this video I'm going to focus on maybe the most important and most misrepresented reason, namely the win rate. How much can you actually win as a blackjack card counter? So as usual, I have a PowerPoint, so let's get right to that. All right, so we want to start off this video by talking about what is the most money a card counter could possibly earn. In other words, let's start with a world in which we have a so-called perfect card counter. And this card counter, well, we will give them a real world game. We will sit this real world card counter at a 6-deck shoe game with the rules where the dealer hits on 17, the player can double on any first two cards, can double after a split, and we'll give a very generous cut card placement of one deck from the end. Now, what makes this card counter perfect? Well, this card counter uses the high-low card counting system, which is probably the most commonly used system, but he knows absolutely every index, and there are 100 or more of these indices for changing how he plays strategically. He plays perfectly. Not only that, he can compute the true count perfectly. In other words, he's not simply dividing by quarter decks or half decks. He is getting the exact true count and making his wagers based on this perfect computation. Now, we will assume this card counter also wagers perfectly, which is to say that he will, whenever he has the edge, make a $100 wager. Now I'm going to make it a $100 wager so that we can scale these results. Yes, the perfect card counter might wager 500 or 1,000 or whatever, but we're going to just fix his max wager at $100. So he doesn't spread his bet. There's no reason to spread. When he has the edge, he bets $100. That's so-called wonging in. And when he doesn't have the edge, he will wong out. And we're going to assume there is zero heat. The casino doesn't care that this perfect card counter is playing this way. So we have a perfect card counter only betting when he has the edge, not betting otherwise, making a $100 bet with the edge. And the question is, the big question is, what is the average amount this perfect card counter wins per 100 hands? So by per 100 hands, I'm not talking about the 100 hands he plays. He will observe 100 hands. Whenever he has the edge, he'll make a wager. When he doesn't have the edge, he won't. So when I talk about per 100 hands, it is per 100 hands observed, some of which he will play. Now, it turns out we can answer this question, and the answer is going to surprise you quite a bit. So I want you to take a guess. What do you think this card counter wins per 100 hands? Now, I have asked the same question in my seminars worldwide, and I have gotten answers up to $8,000 per 100 hands. When I used to be a card counter, I remember one pit boss at our local casino used to say that I was winning about $700 per 100 hands. At that time, my max bet was $60 at this casino. And very rarely will you get somebody who's even in the ballpark with this answer. So why don't you take a guess, and whatever number you guess, I want you to divide that one in half. And now let's look at the actual results here. So these are the results. With a blackjack card counting system, 6 decks, hit 17, double on anything, double after split with the cut card at 52 cards. It turns out that the trigger true count, the true count at which the card counter has the edge, is +1. So whenever the count is +1 or higher, he will make his wager of $100. If you run the simulation, you will get about 49 hands per shoe. Out of those, about 14 of them have an edge, so this card counter will wager roughly on 14.2 hands per shoe. In other words, about 29% of the hands, he has an edge over the house. When you actually look at his average edge, how much on average does he have an edge over the house? What is that percentage edge? And I put this in here so you can compare it to other opportunities I have talked about or listed on my website, other games, whether it's hole carding, edge sorting, or some side bet. So we see his average edge when he plays is about 1.16%. And the bottom line here, you see right here at the bottom, is this 33.58. This guy is winning $33.58 per 100 hands. Did you get close to the right answer, 33.58? Now, lest you think that I am a somewhat weak programmer, I will say that these results I'm presenting right here owe to Norm Wattenberger, who may be the most foremost blackjack programmer and simulator in the industry. He's been doing this easily for 25 years. He computed these results for me. You can find more about his simulation software at qfit.com. All right, so that's not very good, right? And now let me just give you the simple example of what I mean by scaling. So for example, if instead of $100, you were a perfect card counter making a $500 bet whenever you had the edge, plus one or higher, then your win rate would simply be 33.58, and you'd multiply that by 5. So you'd get about $168 per 100 hands. So the reason I choose $100 is because it makes these results easily scalable. So what about double deck? Well, Norm also ran this for me, and you can pause this and sort of read through it. We're talking about a double deck game with a cut card at 29 cards. In other words, 75 cards are dealt between shuffles. And what we see here, as expected in a double deck game, is a much higher win rate of $66.29 per 100 hands for the perfect card counters. But it's nothing like that $700 or $8,000, or what did you guess, $200? So just not very much, right? And this is a perfect card counter. So now let's talk about the average card counter. So again, we're going to have that same game that we had before. A blackjack card counter is playing this 6-deck hit 17 double on anything double after split with a 1-deck cutoff. And this card counter is going to use sort of the most popular collection of playing indices, the so-called illustrious 18, the top 18 most valuable indices, together with 4 additional indices that he may use if he's playing a game that offers late surrender. We're going to once again make the assumption that this card counter is wonging in and wonging out, which means he's only going to play a hand if the count indicates that he has the edge over the house. Otherwise, he's going to sit out. Now, if you are a card counter who plays all, you sit through negative counts and play a minimum bet, then your win rate will be substantially less than even what I show here. And we're going to assume that this counter uses a human feasible conversion of quarter decks. In other words, he can't figure out the exact true count based on exactly the number of cards left in the shoe, but he does probably the best that anyone can do, which is this quarter deck conversion into true count, and that he has a 1 to 8 bet spread. So with all of that in mind, once again, ask yourself, what do you think this card counter is going to win per 100 hands? And what you know for sure is that he earns less than the perfect card counter, less than that $33. So let's go ahead and have a look. So this is a table of values that I got from the book Blackjack Attack, second edition by Don Schlesinger. Don Schlesinger is certainly one of the top experts in terms of having conducted massive computer simulations under all sorts of conditions for various count systems to figure out just what your win rate is. So I would highly suggest you purchase his book if you're interested in such questions. And the data that he came up with for the situation we're talking about is a win rate of $22.13 per 100 hands. Now, a more realistic situation, even than that, we know that most of the time the casinos these days put the cut card at about 1.5 decks, in which case your win rate is just about $15 per 100 hands. And now you see what I say. I mean, about just how pathetic the win rates are. You have to bet a lot of money. You need a huge bankroll, and you don't make very much. That's just how blackjack card counting is. So, again, the reason I give these results is for $100 is so that you can scale them. An average card counter, let's say with a $500 max bet, who is wonging in, wonging out, in other words, back counting the shoes, is making about $110, $111 per 100 hands. Now, what's interesting is that Schlesinger actually, in his book, gives 4 reasons that the blackjack card counter probably isn't even earning the pathetic amount that he indicates. So this is according to Schlesinger. He may use a weaker card counting system than high-low, for example, KO or one of these others, Red 7. Or he may not know all 18 indices. He may use 10 indices. So that certainly both of those are possible. As I mentioned before, he may use a play all approach where the person actually plays through the negative counts with a min bet. Most people do that, in fact, and I believe that instead of that 22, it takes it down to about $16 to $18 per 100 hands in that previous table. And honestly, reason number 3 is that that quarter deck estimation is pretty tough, and very few card counters can make a quarter deck estimation correctly. They will miscompute the true count. They might make other errors. They might lose track of the count, right? They just might make a mistake of an ordinary human mistake now and then. And also, most card counters, in order to avoid heat, are going to use camouflage plays. For example, not splitting tens, not doubling down on their total of 10 against an ace, maybe not taking surrender when they have an 8-5 against the dealer's ace. So there are cover plays you'll have to take that will take your win rate down even more. So we just see that $100 max bet might just be at your local casino, winning you somewhere between $10 and $15 per 100 hands. That is pretty sad. So I want to direct you to my website, advancedadvantageplay.com. And I actually have a number of articles I have written on this topic. Much of what I'm covering in this talk comes from this article here on the bottom, The World's Greatest Blackjack Card Counter, Frequently Asked Questions. And that refers to a couple other articles I've written. So if you really want to dig into this and actually see the data from the simulations and see everything else that I've done in terms of this type of analysis, I just recommend that you go to this article. Now, one of the things that happened after I wrote this article, which came out many, many years ago now, is that I got a lot of feedback from the card counters out there thinking that I must be sort of full of, well, you know. And so I just started answering their questions. They would post these questions on message boards and on my blog. So I just want to present to you 5 of the questions that they sent my way. Question number 1. You must have made a mistake in your computer simulations. How can I trust that your results are right? Well, let me just tell you once again, they are not my simulations, right? The results for the perfect card counter owed to Norm Wattenberger, the foremost programmer active today in blackjack card counting simulations. The other results owed to Don Schlesinger, who is probably the foremost world's expert on blackjack card counting, period. So between those two guys, I think I have pretty good sources. Question number 2. I'm winning at a much higher pace than your numbers suggest is possible. How can you be right when I'm winning so much more than you predict? Well, look, blackjack has a lot of variance in it. You will go on fabulous winning streaks and have horrible, horrible losing streaks. Both of those things will happen. That's the short term. We're talking about your long-term average. So if you happen to be way ahead of where expectation says you should be at this point in your career, well, lucky you, in time, things will catch up with you. and you will just find out that it sucks. Question number 3. You have the player play whenever the count is +1 or higher. Can't he make more money by wagering when the true count is higher so that he has a bigger edge? So what I have is the player making a bet whenever he has the edge over the house. If you were to wait until, say, the true count was +3 or higher, then you would be giving up all that profit when the true count was +1 or +2, and your win rate would go down. Yes, you would have a higher chance of winning when you made your bet. Well, my way of playing the average card counter already is making those same bets. So the difference is that if you wait till a higher true count, you're losing the profit at the lower true counts. Question number 4. I bet a lot more than $100 in my maximum bet, so I'll make a lot more than your numbers suggest. How can you say your numbers are valid for me? All right, did you see how I gave those 2 examples of scaling? Yes, my numbers are not valid for you if your max bet is $2,000. What would you do to get to that answer? You would simply multiply my results by 20. So I hope you understand that the reason I chose $100 was because it makes things scalable. And last, I use Kelly betting. So I win at the maximum possible rate. How can you say that you can win more without using Kelly betting? So Kelly betting is a way of making a wager that is in proportion to your advantage over the house. The more, if you have a fixed bankroll, the more your edge for a given game, the more you're going to bet. So if your edge is very small, you bet small. If your edge is big, you bet big. Well, you see, what I've done is essentially taken your Kelly maximum bet and said, always make that bet whenever you have the advantage. In other words, we're not worrying about your risk of ruin here. We're simply making your maximum Kelly bet at every given instance where we have the advantage over the house. So the reason I make more than you in my system is that I am always betting your maximum bet whenever I have the edge. Of course, this is a theoretical example, and so the risk of ruin will come into play. A bet spread is meant to accommodate your risk of ruin, which is why Don Schlesinger's numbers are so much lower than the perfect card counter, right? You got it? But it's a good question, maybe one of the sharpest that I got. So I hope this helps you understand just why blackjack card counting sucks. The win rate is really very pitiful. So here's what I want you to do, all right? I want you to subscribe to my channel, and I'm just going to ask you to do that. I am looking for 1,000 subscribers. I'm at about 600 as I make this video. So I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers because YouTube gives you all sorts of benefits and privileges once you hit 1,000 subscribers that it doesn't before you hit that point. So if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy my other videos, please take the time to hit the subscribe button down there. I would appreciate it very much. All right, everyone. This is Elliot Jacobson. See you later.